Hello, my name is Steve Quinlan and I'm the Privacy Officer for PLEA. And with me today is Scott Wright.
Hi Steve.
Hi Scott. Scott is an internationally recognised expert in the security of information, electronic information, and has a great deal of wealth and experience that I'm going to draw on today. As the Privacy Officer for PLEA, I'm also responsible for the management and the development of our case administration management system, which is called CAMS and is used by many different agencies. Today we're going to talk about security, and that's different from privacy. Security is about stopping those who should not have access to the information, having access to that information. Privacy is about sharing information to those who need to know the information in a thoughtful and respectful way. So Scott, I'd like to talk about the first thing, passwords. How complex should a password be?
Well, Steve, as you know, most of the information we have in businesses today is essentially protected by passwords. So it is very key to the protection of all our business information to protect and handle our passwords properly. So having a complex password is one element of that type of protection. The type of complexity that is required in most policies these days is to have something such as at least 8 characters in your password, and to have characters such as uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. The reason is this makes it more difficult for attackers such as identity thieves and hackers who may be trying to guess your password to get at the sensitive information. So we have that need for complexity, but we also want to try to avoid using dictionary words or common words such as your child's name or your pet's name. Attackers are starting to realize that we like to use words that we can remember easily in our passwords, and so they try to guess those things first, and they're usually pretty successful at it. One other thing that we can do to limit the attacker's ability and keep complexity high is to add characters to our password. The longer the password, the better. So with every additional character in your password, you are increasing its complexity exponentially, making it that much harder for attackers to break into your account.
And so, is it okay to use the same password all the time, or should I have different ones?
In fact, you should have different passwords for different types of accounts. One of the things that an attacker will do is, if they are able to get your password for one account, maybe your webmail account or your online banking account, they may try to use it on other accounts such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, FedEx, UPS, or even on your business account if you have remote access enabled on your organization. So it's important that we limit the attacker's ability to jump from account to account by having different passwords on each account.
Okay, and so that kind of then leads me on to the next question, which would be around Wi-Fi. Is accessing information safe using Wi-Fi?
It can be safe, but I would generally recommend that people not use Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi hotspots, for example, for accessing business information unless they have a special safeguard called encryption. Encryption basically just scrambles the information as it goes between your computer and the internet. Otherwise, if you don't do that, there can be people sitting nearby at Starbucks or McDonald's listening in and monitoring all the communication between your computer and the rest of the world. So it's important to not use those types of hotspots unless you have encryption enabled. You could have your home Wi-Fi set up on your network at home, and to do that you should enable encryption. There's an option called WPA2, which most computers and devices these days can implement. So once you turn it on, it scrambles all the information that your computer is sending to the internet, and that prevents people like attackers who may be out on the street or sitting in a neighbor's house from snooping on your data.
And PLEA certainly allows people to use Wi-Fi at home and access over their internet at home, as long as it's their internet. We certainly wouldn't allow people to use public Wi-Fi such as Starbucks or a hotel internet, simply because we just don't know who's there. And using the analogy of sitting in Starbucks, if you don't know who's actually joining your conversation, you should be careful as to what's being said.
Exactly.
So the other thing that people can use, PLEA allows people to use their personal phones for work. What kind of security checks should they be building in if they're using their own personal phone?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you are using your personal phone for business, you should make sure that at least the organization does endorse it. Otherwise, you should try not to store sensitive business information on your phone. But if the organization does allow you to store information, business-related information on your phone, you again have to make sure that you're using a good password on the phone. Always make sure you have a password whenever you have business information either on the phone or accessible by the phone. So going back to our password discussion, you have to make sure it's got good complexity and is long. Most smartphones now will allow you to have complex passwords, so there's really no excuse for that.
And certainly, out of respect for the people whose information you're storing, you really should protect that phone carefully. People can use smartphones to access cams, and they may, rather than store the information in the phone, may want to access cams using the smartphone there.
Mm-hmm. That actually would not only probably be easier for them, but it is also more likely to be safe or safer, because if somebody finds a phone, they may check the address book, but they may not go as far as to seek out different sites that you have access to. On the other hand, you do have to have a password on the phone if you have access to any business sites.
Absolutely, and don't forget to log out. And
Right.
Scott, you're quite an expert on losing phones.
Yes, I was recently involved in a study. I did a study for a software company called Symantec, where we intentionally lost 50 phones around North America just to see what people would do with them, to understand more what the threat is to business information. Yes. And what we discovered was not all that encouraging. In over 80% of the phones, people who found them actually tried to access either personal information such as Facebook or private pictures, or they tried to access things like business email or even things like HR salary information. Despite the fact that half of the people did offer to return the phones, over 80% of them still did go through sensitive information on the phone. So it's a little bit disheartening, but even people with good intentions have curiosity, and they can breach your security very easily.
And so I guess if I lose my personal phone, do I have to report that to my employer?
Well, if your personal phone does have business information on it, or if it has access to business systems such as CAMs, you would have to report that to your employer, because they are liable for protecting the information and limiting the damage from any incidents. So as a result, they may require you to change your password or disable your account. They may even have to provide notification to people who are affected by the data loss, which is not only costly but embarrassing to the organization.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. Thank you. That's both been interesting and informative. So I hope people have enjoyed that. For the PLEA teams that are watching this now, you'll want to move to your exercise in discussing privacy in relation to how your team deals with it. And I just want to once again thank Scott Wright for helping us with this.
Happy to be here, Steve, and just want to remind everybody that they should always be thinking about security and protecting business information whenever they're handling it.
Thank you so much.